Clemson improved to 4-2 with a 17-12 win over Wake Forest on Saturday. It was a bit of a slog of a game as Clemson's defense was completely dominant, and the offense was out of sorts the whole game. I've been very almost defensive of Cade Klubnik. I felt like a lot of the issues weren't his fault, but in this game he struggled. He was not great in this game. The receivers didn't help him, but he had a rough one. So let's dive into it. I'm going to start with some positives. Then we'll dive into some negatives, and we'll end on a high note with some more positives. So let's start with the obvious positives. This defense, man, Clemson's defense saved the day. There was a early turnover, and the defense bailed them out. The offense gave Wake Forest the ball deep into their own territory, and it was really a situation where Wake Forest, that's 4 down territory. You're the big underdog on the road. Go for it, get the touchdown. They didn't get it. So saved them 3, if not 7 points there. And then there was a muffed punt by Tyler Brown. Pretty kind of a layup situation with field position, ended in a missed field goal by Wake Forest. That's call it 6 to 14 points. The defense completely bailed them out of. And the margin, only 5 points. So really the defense saved the day. This was a very losable game based on the way the offense played. Some guys who stood out to me on the defense, Toriano Pride, I thought was awesome. He had a 77.4 PFF grade. They didn't have Nate Wiggins. They didn't have Sheridan Jones. So Toriano Pride stepping up was huge. This is the best position group Clemson's got in the program, kind of long term. Mike Reed is, I think, maybe the best assistant coach, not counting Garrett Riley. I mean, he is excellent. Maybe he's the best cornerback coach in the entire country. You got Nate Wiggins, you got Sheridan Jones. Next year, Pride and Lucas are your starters. I think that's going to be just fine. That is such a great position of strength for Clemson. So kudos to the backups at cornerback. They started and were awesome in this game, particularly Toriano Pride. Huge game for him. So good to see that. The defensive tackles, another position of strength for the program as a whole and this team. I thought Rukaroro was excellent. He had a sack. Tyler Davis was good. He was in the backfield all day. They held Claiborne to 3.2 yards per carry, and they held the backup running back Carney to 2.9 yards per carry. And that's why Clemson won. The cornerbacks prevented any big passing plays for the most part, and the defensive tackles just destroyed the slow mesh. By the time he pulled the ball and decided to pass, he was on him. By the time he handed him off, the running back was being tackled. I mean, it was just, Wes Goodwin's done a good job. I mean, it's not his guys necessarily, but given the talent he inherited, which is great, he's done a good job. It'll be really interesting to see what they do next year when they're going to lose potentially all their starters. I would probably guess about 9 of the 11 starters are going to be gone. What does he then do, right? So you got to see him repeat it before you crown him, an elite coordinator. But you definitely got to get off his back. This is a good defense. He's done what he can so far. So kudos to Goodwin and this defense for kind of single-handedly getting this win, because the offense and special teams were terrible. Under Venables, it seemed like it would be one game per season where the defense was just completely off. And under Goodwin, it seems like it's one drive per game where the defense just kind of disappears. They'll dominate the entire game except one drive. You go to the Duke game, there was a 75-yard drive that included a 44-yard run by Riley Leonard, was one of the biggest plays of the game. That had the broken tackle where Barrett Carter was all over him, and Riley Leonard just scampered away, right? Florida State, it was right before halftime. They go 75 plays and 5 yards in under 2 minutes, just zip down the field. Syracuse, it was a 75-yard drive, 2 big passes to the tight end, and it made it 14-7, kept him alive right when you thought, Clemson might blow him out. Against Wake Forest, late in the game seemed like it was on the verge of being over. You're one stop away, and they march right down and go 75 yards in 4 minutes, 15 seconds. But every other drive, the defense is excellent, and they're really only scoring when the offense puts them in a bad position. So I thought they were great. And on that last drive of this game against Wake Forest, there was a PI from Shelton Lewis and a face mask from Denhoff. I thought it was a little peculiar that they were out there. It was like kind of a critical situation there, trying to win the game. it was a couple days ago, maybe a week ago, I posted a projection of what the 2024 defense might look like with so many guys potentially leaving. And I had marked in transfer for defensive end because you almost have no choice. You'll have TJ Parker, then both your starters are gone. And your other options are Zaire Patterson, who doesn't play, and Kay Denhoff, who struggles. He had a horrible face mask where he just reached out and seemed pretty clearly just grabbed. I mean, the whole crowd, they didn't boo the call. They just immediately were upset about very, very one of the most obvious face masking penalties I've seen. I think that's a spot where you might have to get a transfer next year. We're going to see how serious, all the talk that Clemson looks into transfers and they're open to it. We'll find out. Not going to dwell on that, but at defensive end, it is a little concerning. You have 2 6th-year starters. Xavier Thomas was a 5-star. Maskell was a 4-star. You also have Denhoff, who is a very highly rated 4-star. He's in his 3rd year, and a freshman, TJ Parker, is the best defensive end on the team. Not seeing the development there. It's going to be a big spot next year to watch, defensive end. Obviously, the offense was the main kind of bad thing to talk about. There's a lot to dive into there. I thought the running backs ran hard. I really like what Maffa does, but Cade Klubnik really struggled. He had another fumble on an exchange in the zone read. Seemed like it was on him, not on Shipley, in my opinion. Zone read's a fairly normal play. It's kind of a staple. It's not like you can just pull that out of the playbook. He did score a touchdown pulling and running later, so it's a great play. You really got to figure that out. He's towards the top. I think he's probably still at number 1 in the country in lost fumbles. I mean, that's very basic thing that they've just got to clean up. A couple more things. I'm going to dive into some PFF grades on the offensive line, but first, just want to remind you, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, please do so. It really helps out, and thank you to everyone who's already subscribed. All right, Adam Randall did not played almost. I don't recall seeing him at all. No catches, no impact. He's been completely benched now. It's just crazy because all the talk out of camp was him and Bo Collins were going to be the guys, and he's kind of disappeared, and now he's benched. We'll see what happens in the offseason. But I reached out to someone I know and trust who sees the practice in the offseason and said, I don't understand. I knew that he wasn't ready based on watching last year. How do the coaches not know this? And he said, watching him in camp, he looked incredible and he was really excited for a big step. This is a football guy I trust. So it just never translated to the field, the actual playing field for some reason. And you hate to see that. Maybe he's not healthy. I don't know. That's just speculation, but he was as impressive as people say in camp, and it's just not materialized in actual games. So we'll see. But he's not one of the best 5. He just doesn't get open at all. So I don't know if he gets back on the field or if he transfers in the offseason or if he figures it out and is better next year. But big time recruit that came in, and there's a lot of talk this year. So we'll see what happens to him. Let's talk offensive line though. Tristan Lee only played 25 snaps. Sadler played 45 snaps. Lee only had a 53 PFF grade. Sadler was at 67, which is pretty solid. So I don't know. They're still sharing, but Sadler earned the majority of the snaps in this game against Wake Forest. Marcus Tate was all right with a 61 PFF grade. Putnam, I noticed a few times struggling. He had a 56. Harris Sewell got 62 snaps, whereas Mitchell Mays only had 8 at a right guard. Sewell struggled a little bit with a 52.7 PFF grade. Really not what you want. It's good to see a young guy get some snaps and grow, but he's not an immediate answer. They do miss Walker Parks for sure. Blake Miller, I thought was pretty good. Played 70 snaps with a 66 PFF grade. So Blake Miller, kind of the standout of the line to me. Special teams was terrible. Another big issue. Tyler Brown was back there, and he let one bounce right around the 13, and it bounced to about the 3, and then he picked it up and got tackled. You can't give away those free yards and also still take the risk of picking it up with the defenders near you. Really the worst of both worlds. And then the very next time, I think it was right before halftime, he settled under one, just completely muffed it, gave him the ball. That led to a missed field goal, luckily, because the defense bailed him out. But you just can't keep having those mistakes. Now that he's playing such a bigger role in the offense, I don't know that you necessarily need him back there. trying to like find ways to get on the ball because he's one of the key receivers at this point. So maybe you put either Hamp Green, he's sure-handed at least, or you put Antonio Williams back there when he's healthy, hopefully for the Miami game. And then to me, the weirdest thing of the whole game was Dabo's decision to try to attempt a 51-yard field goal. It was 10-6 early in the fourth quarter, 14-26 left. Game very much still in, up for grabs. They're on the 34-yard line. I figure this is a situation, you're definitely in no man's land. You have to go for it. It was fourth and medium. And they bring out the kicking team, and I couldn't quite tell. I was like, oh, they're punting. I guess that makes sense. And then it's like, oh, no, they're kicking. Maybe they want Robert Gunn to have a big kick and kind of earn the job back because he's got so much potential. And it's Jonathan White's, and he misses it. And it's like, it's not his fault. Why would you put him in that situation? You game on the line, you're kicking a 51-yarder. It just makes no sense from field position. There's no way he has a better chance to make that than that offense, even struggling as they were their chance to pick up a first down and at least get closer. I just thought it was just some of the in-game management stuff is bad. But I will say, let's end on some positives. It wasn't as bad as Miami's in-game management. Man, what a ridiculous way to lose. Miami lost at home to Georgia Tech. They had the ball with under a minute. Georgia Tech had already burned all their timeouts. All they had to do was kneel twice and win the game. And instead, they run the ball. It gets stripped. They fumble. 2 plays later, Haynes King is Hail Marying it into the end zone for a game-winning score with about 2 seconds to go. So Miami picks up a completely unnecessary loss. And kudos to the Cover 2 podcast and Bud Elliott for uncovering this. Not the first time Mario Cristobal has done this exact same mistake. Years ago in 2018, when he was the coach at Oregon, they're playing Stanford. Exact same situation, about a minute to go, no timeouts for the other team. All they have to do is kneel twice to win the game. They run it. It gets stripped. It's a fumble. Stanford goes down, kicks a field goal to tie the game, and Stanford wins in overtime. So just completely incompetent and didn't learn from his mistake. So complaining about, a mistake that Dabo made, which I think was a pretty silly one, but it's not that silly. So, count your blessings there. Some other things, kind of some positives. This is the week where the rumor was Clemson was going to announce that they're joining a new conference during the open date. So we'll listen and see if on the 10th or the 12th, these are some of the dates you heard floating around on X. I don't know if I believe it, to be honest. Hopefully this ages poorly. I would love to see Clemson get into the SEC along with maybe all the ACC teams that have an SEC rival. That would be a lot of fun. I do think playing in a weak conference in a way can hold Clemson back. You play like you did against Wake Forest, you win, and Dabo calls it a gritty win and an opportunity to grow, and he's all excited and he's pumping it up as if it was not a really bad performance. You do that in the SEC, you lose to Kentucky. You do that in the SEC, you lose to Ole Miss, right? So you're not going to get the freebie wins except when you play maybe Vanderbilt. So those go away if you join the SEC and, take a couple L's and you start changing your philosophy on some things. So I think joining the SEC, not to mention more fun games, a lot more money, better road trips, that'd be fun. I don't think it's going to happen in the next week, but would be fun to hear about. Honestly, joining any other conference before Stanford and Cal join in, I would cheer it on. But we'll listen for that. And then as we wrap up here, just Notre Dame. That game also, Miami looks more winnable. I walked out of the Clemson Wake Forest game thinking, man, Miami might just ground and pound us. And then I see Miami blow it to Georgia Tech. That seems more winnable. The Notre Dame game, they lost to Louisville. So Notre Dame seems more winnable. Their offense is just not good. And Louisville, who was actually my sleeper pick, if you subscribe to this channel, hopefully you saw our conference champions pick. And with my last pick, I grabbed Louisville to win the ACC, and frankly, they might do it. They're undefeated. They're cruising. They don't have a whole lot left on the schedule. They might face Duke without Riley Leonard. I don't think they'll go 12-0, but they could definitely go 10-2, and they could be in the ACC championship game with a playoff bid on the line, which would be. I'd much rather see them win than Florida State. It would be a crazy twist. Lastly, they were playing a lot of ads for Clemson basketball in the stadium. And I got to say, maybe I'm a fool, but I'm excited about this team. They have a really good roster. Their defense and rebounding could be challenges, but this could be one of Clemson's best offensive teams, since the Horace Grant kind of days. I mean, this could be a really special Clemson basketball team. So as we get closer to that, we've still got like a month to go, but we'll definitely have some preview content here. So be sure to subscribe to this channel if you're not already, because we've got some interesting stuff in basketball to talk about. And of course, after the open date, we'll have a really interesting stretch of football with some tough opponents. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and go Tigers.